Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Borussia Dortmund have given Bayern Munich a lifeline, losing to Augsburg 2-1. How did Augsburg do it? Where did Borussia Dortmund go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Augsburg beat Dortmund. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game, and why Dortmund struggled to create chances. Then move to the second half, see where they were looking to create avenues, and how Augsburg did so well to ensure that Dortmund were unable to create enough chances. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Augsburg 4-1-4-1. G up front, out in the wider areas. They went with Max and they went with Hahn, and in midfield, Gregoritsch and Kuh ahead of Bayer. Then we move to Borussia Dortmund, more of a 4-2-3-1. You have Götze just ahead of Royce, out in the wider areas, Sancho and Brun Larsen, and in midfield, Witsel and Delaney. So now let's get to the first half, see how Augsburg looked to approach the game and how they were able to contain Dortmund in that opening period. So when we break down Dortmund against Augsburg, we look at how Dortmund were trying to create chances and score goals because Augsburg often retreated into their 4-1-4-1 that eventually became a 4-5-1 with them dropping off a bit deeper. You had G kind of looking to press Witsel when he did get on the ball, Kuh stepping to Delaney at whenever the opportunity presented itself, and you had Royce sitting in the hole on his return, trying to find space in between Bayer and in between the lines. Whenever he did move into those spaces, Bayer was able to track him, but what he also did was that if Royce shifted to his left or his right, he'd have Gregoritsch or Kuh monitor his movement in between the lines. We often saw Mario Götze also drop into that space between the lines, and what he would do was most of his positions took up in the pockets of spaces. So what he would often do is that we'd see him drop in between Gregoritsch and in between Max to get the ball and try to link play with Jadon Sancho. We'll get to more of that in the second half, where they really look to emphasize that point where they try to build attacks through those two, but that's where he tried to drop into, or from the opposite flank, he'd move in between Hu and Kahn to get on the ball, but he was floating between the lines. One of the problems that Dortmund did have here was that they were unable to, or not that they were unable to, but they never pushed runners forward and behind. There were times where you'd see Royce and you'd see Götze dropping into the same area space across each other in between the lines, or sometimes they'd be pushed forward, occupying the center backs in Donzo and Khedira. But besides that, nothing was really going for them in that regard. They weren't stretching the back line. No one was making darting runs in behind. Sancho was occupied, and he struggled to really influence the game. On the opposite side, it was kind of the same thing. So with that being said, Hakimi was marked out. Diallo never really looked to push forward. So Dortmund really struggled to create chances. Witsel was poor throughout in the opening stages, trying to play passes, losing possession of the ball. There was one time where just a heavy touch from him sees Kuh step in to win it and play it to G and get it back. And he delivered a diagonal to the left half space where Hakimi and Max were going for it. Max was trying to run him behind. Hakimi nodded it upwards. Max was able to hold him off and fire a shot on goal. But besides that, that's where he struggled. Another time he did get his loose touch led to an error where Hahn was able to pick up the ball, but Witsel was able to track him back and win the ball back. So that was Dortmund's issue. What we did see Augsburg do throughout as well was that sometimes they dropped into more of a 6-3-1, where what happened was Brun Larsen was ended up being marked by, on this side, by another player in Hahn, because what they were doing was they were shifting Schmid over, and they could afford to do that because Diallo wasn't really offering a significant threat down the left-hand side. It's not that he wasn't always going forward, but you didn't expect him to. And if ever he got the ball shifted out, then you would see push forward in Hahn to step in, and you would see Schmid come across. But for the most part, he was tracking there. You had Sancho against Staphlidis, and then what happened was that Max was tracking Hakimi throughout, so that's how it became a 6-3-1. There were some pros to it and some cons, but as the game wore on, eventually we saw Staphlidis exit the game, and we saw Tygo come on, which pushed Max to left back. And when we break down Dortmund's chances, we kind of see that they struggle to create anything in the terms of how they were looking to approach the game, but they were able to carve open some chances. One of the first opportunities that they do get is when you see, or one of the main opportunities that they do get from these patterns that they were trying to create was Götze dropping into space in between Han and in between Ku to receive the ball from Akanji, wins the ball, turns, and he's able to see Bernd Larsen running off Schmid. So he plays the ball across him, and when he gets the ball, he locates Royce breaking into the box, and his first touch, however, drives into the path of Kobel, and he's unable to get a shot. But you kind of see what they're about, how they're looking to approach the game, and that was one opportunity there where Götze dropped into that space and was able to exploit the lines perfectly. We look to another opportunity where the ball is shifted out to Diallo, and he's able to push forward. Delaney shifts it out to him, and like I said, we see Schmid and we see Han kind of caught out, and as he tries to come across, Diallo delivers a good cross into the box where you see Royce breaking it, but he flicks his effort wide at the net. So that was another opportunity for Dortmund to really exploit the fact that they were giving Diallo so much space, and it never really worked out for them there. Final opportunity, we were talking about Götze dropping into those pockets of spaces. Here, what we end up seeing is Tyrrell stepping to Hakimi, and this time we see Götze drop into that space in behind Tyrrell to pick up the ball. And this was where now, again, we highlight Schmid and we highlight Han and their positioning. This is one of the few times Götze went very deep, picked up the ball, located Larsen, making a run in between Han and Schmid. He makes that run. Götze's diagonal is perfect, and he's able to take it down superbly with his first touch, and he volleys an effort on goal right at the keeper, who's able to push it away. But it just goes to show the breakdowns that they were able to find, and which led to chances, but Dortmund were unable to get a goal ahead of halftime. Whereas we look at Augsburg defending for long periods, forced Zagadou into a mistake in the opening minute through a press from Ku, and eventually G was offside, but they're able to get their opener, and it was just a breakdown from Dortmund. Max clipping a punted ball in towards half, and Gregoritsch nods it over Hakimi into the path of G, who holds off his marker. He's able to switch the play out to Schmid. He switches the play out to Schmid, and we end up seeing Diallo kind of stepping, and what happens there is that what happens is that as Diallo steps, he wraps the ball around Diallo for Han to get the ball, but Han is marked off by Zagadou. But what happens here is Zagadou ends up making a meal out of the clearance, goes through his legs, and Han's able to break forward, and he's able to pull it back for G, who has his shot initially blocked, but eventually he converts from point blank range. When you break down the first half as a whole, you see how Augsburg were looking to set up, and you see the issues that Dortmund had trying to create chances. Eventually, they were able to find some breakthroughs, but for a side that was dominating possession for such long periods, they should have done more. So now let's get to the second half, see how Dortmund would try to get back into the game before Augsburg was able to kill it off. When we move to the second half, we do see Dortmund look to push a bit forward. They have Witsel dropping in between the center backs to get on the ball on most occasions, with G looking to press across whenever one of the defenders or Witsel got onto the ball. This allowed the fullbacks to push forward, but Dortmund continued to attack the same way down the right-hand side, trying to get Sancho and Götze to get involved. But here it was more obvious. We saw often, there's 3 different occasions within the opening 10 minutes where we saw Dortmund try to break through that side. We saw Kanji often sliding the ball out to Jadon Sancho. Now what would happen here is that he slides the ball out to Sancho, and he ends up pulling Max, and he ends up putting Tyrrell and Max to him. And when he pulls them to him, the first attempt, we see the ball played out to him. He plays the ball into Götze, dropping off to Khedira. So he ends up splitting those two into Max and Tyrrell. Götze drops off, but Khedira steps in to intercept the ball to clear that danger. Shortly after that, the same routine. Akanji out to Sancho, and what we end up seeing this time is Götze running in behind Khedira, or running in behind Max and Khedira, but Khedira tracks the ball well as Sancho pokes it around Max, and pokes it around Tyrrell, and what we end up seeing there is Khedira coming across to clear that danger. One of the final opportunities that we see down that side before they move to the opposite side was the ball switched out to Sancho again. Max and Tyrrell come across. What happens there is that he sees Götze pulling out Khedira, instantly pokes the ball around to him, drives in between Max and Tyrrell Sancho to get the ball back, and he's able to skip past Khedira, but Bayer comes across to clear the danger. So down that side, they always had markers there. Max and Tyrrell doubling up on Sancho, Khedira coming to Götze, and at the time where all three of them were beat, we saw Bayer come across to deal with that. They moved to the left-hand side, Götze this time, dropping in to get a pass from Zagadou in between Ku and in between Han. He gets the ball in that space and instantly turns, and with Danzo stepping up and Ku retreating, he's able to play the ball or poke a ball in between them around Khedira for Royce to try and get onto it. However, the pass is a bit too heavy, and that they were unable to get anything from that as well. Eventually after that, we see Dortmund make a few changes. Paco comes on for Royce, Guerrero for Delaney, and Dortmund end up becoming more of a 4-1-4-1 as well, with Bern Larsen and Götze playing into the central areas, and they have Paco a bit higher. But that didn't really lead to any tactical changes in terms of the way Dortmund attacked, and shortly after that change, they gave up the second goal. Hakimi with a poor pass across the pitch for G, who's able to intercept it, run at Zagadou. He's able to cut in at the edge of the box and chip the keeper. Superb finish. Augsburg worthy of their 2-0 lead, exploiting Dortmund's mistakes and pushing forward and defending superbly. But shortly after that, here comes Götze again. Bern Larsen ends up winning a loose ball in midfield, and he ends up poking it into the path of Götze, past Bayer in a deeper position, and he ends up Götze locating the run of Paco, running off Danzo. Another long diagonal that leads to a threat. Over Danzo, Paco volleys his effort on goal that is pushed away. The way that they're able to get their opening goal is that, again, we see pressure from Tyrrell from Hakimi, and he plays a poor pass at the back trying to find the keeper, and you end up seeing Sancho run onto it ahead of Khedira and backheels it into a vacant Götze, who now has Danzo coming across, and he slides it to Paco to get that goal. But shortly after that, their final chance of the game, again, we see it down the right-hand side. How do they go about it? Ball shifted out from Akanji to Sancho, and what happens there is that the ball switched out to Hakimi, Tyrrell steps to him, and he plays it to Sancho with Max coming across, and now Tyrrell trying to recover, but we see Sancho carry the ball across Max and end up playing it in between Bayer and in between Khedira for Paco, dropping off ahead of Danzo. Paco's able to now get the ball and lay it off to Götze, who's on the left-hand side at the edge of the box, and he fires a low shot on goal, but is pushed away. Kobel made some key saves. Augsburg's shape was good. They denied Dortmund any space down that right-hand side where they try to get Götze and Sancho to combine, and the only way where Dortmund really looked like they were stretching out this backline was when Götze played those long balls over the top, and it's a bit odd they didn't do that more often. But here, this is about Augsburg defending deep as a unit, having G exploit and be clinical in the final third when the chances presented it and when Dortmund made mistakes. So when we look at it and we see it all there, Dortmund blew a really good chance to extend their gap at the top of the table, and now Bayern Munich could be league leaders by the end of the weekend. But let me know what you guys think. Does Dortmund have the stomach to win the Bundesliga? And what about Augsburg? Following this victory, do you think they will stay safe this season? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget to upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.